You've been taught to fear ambition in women, as if their desire to conquer shelves, boardrooms, and battlegrounds is a betrayal of something sacred. What if I told you that the darkest fires aren't kindled in men's chests, but roared quietly in the hearts of women determined to shatter every glass ceiling? Imagine a silent revolution unfolding in boardrooms, cloaked in ivory silence, fueled by a hunger that men can't decipher. This isn't the pale ambition of polite society. It's a subterranean current, dragging ancient taboos into the light. You stand at the threshold of a revelation every time a woman speaks up. Every time she stakes a claim on power, she unleashes an elemental force that men have misconstrued as unnatural. They mistake her drive for fury, her focus for fury's kin, her strategy for coldness. Yet beneath that cold facade pulses an inferno of purpose. Women learn to mask their fire in soothing tones, careful smiles, and punctuated laughter, so that when the moment arrives, their ambition strikes like lightning in a bottle. This is the paradox you're about to face. The world demands a whisper, yet the truth demands a roar. The ambition of women has always been both revered and reviled, whispered about in mentors' circles, and condemned in hushed parlor judgments. It is a force so profound that men built empires on trying to contain it, and women invaded those empires with nothing but conviction. You are on the brink of understanding why this ambition unsettles the established order. The very essence of your drive threatens every assumption about gender power and purpose. The stakes are higher than any boardroom battle. They ripple through the fabric of society, unraveling old myths and injecting new energy into veins grown brittle with complacency. You wander through a moonlit hall where portraits of powerful women gaze down with eyes carved from steel. Their lips are sealed, yet you hear whispers of battles fought in silence, duels not of swords, but of secrets, strategy, and subtle subversion. You feel the chill of their gaze, sensing that their ambition lives in the shadows, thriving where daylight cannot reach. Look closer. In one frame, a woman stands before a roiling sea, her posture unbroken despite waves clawing at her heels. In another, a scholar strides through a library of locked books, lighting matches in pitch-black corridors. Each image pulses with tension. The world demands that women be gentle, yet those same women harbor a drive so fierce it upends every expectation. You can almost hear their pulse in the silence. Have you ever wondered why the world fears the ambition of women more than that of men? It's as if a woman's hunger for success shatters not just ceilings, but unspoken codes of conduct meant to bind her to the hearth. When a man pursues power, it's celebrated as destiny or divine right. When a woman does, she's branded as cold, ruthless, or unnatural. Society wraps her desires in chains of platitudes. Be yourself, stay humble, all while punishing her when she dares to stride beyond roles prescribed centuries ago. This haunting image serves as a testament to the uncomfortable truth. Women learn to wear their ambition like a secret tattoo hidden beneath smiles, apologies, and downcast eyes. You watch them rehearse sentences in front of the mirror, practice softening. I deserve this into. Perhaps I'm lucky, all to avoid the flares of resistance they've been conditioned to expect. That tension courses through every negotiation table, boardroom, and brainstorming session. Silence becomes your ally, a tool to unsettle those who expect deference, a mirror, reflecting their discomfort back at them. This is the paradox. True ambition in women is both invisible and unstoppable, like a ghost ship navigating uncharted waters. The contradiction is brutal. You crave recognition, yet you mute your own voice for fear of being too loud. Consider the professional who clips her own wings at every turn, downplaying victories in performance reviews, sidestepping questions about her ambitions in networking events, calibrating her laughter so it doesn't threaten. To the outside observer, her progress is effortless. Inside, it's a constant negotiation between the desire to soar and the dread of someone pulling her back down. And still you persist. Because ambition in women is not a fleeting spark, it's a long-burning ember that survives the harshest winds. It's the reason you've learned to master the art of silence, to use pauses as weapons, to let your absence speak louder than your presence. Yet the paradox deepens when you finally roar. When that ember ignites into flame, the world recoils. They call it irrational, unladylike, dangerous. They create myths of the terrible woman who dared to desire more than society prescribed. But you know the truth. Your ambition is not dangerous, it's revolutionary. It rewrites the map of human potential by insisting that women belong in every sphere of power, creativity, and influence. The question echoes through these moonlit halls. Have you ever wondered why your own ambition feels like both a gift and a curse? Why the very thing that fuels your purpose also provokes the fiercest resistance? As you stand before these silent portraits, you realize that your drive is tethered to every woman who came before you and every woman who will follow. Their silence, your strategy, and the world's discomfort form a triangular prism that refracts the light of ambition into a spectrum too complex to ignore. You step into Elena's world, one crisp autumn morning, the kind when sunlight cuts through the chill like a blade. She's standing before a mirror in a penthouse apartment overlooking glass towers, adjusting the collar of her charcoal suit. To the world, she's a powerhouse, a managing director at a top investment firm, the only woman in the C-suite. But beneath that tailored exterior, her ambition has been forged in quiet fires. Elena's journey began 20 years ago when she was the junior analyst at a mid-sized bank in a city that still whispered about appropriate roles for women. She learned early to conceal her tremor of excitement whenever she cracked open a thick binder of market data. She tucked her hunger behind rehearsed smiles and practiced phrases. "I'm just here to learn," she'd say even as her mind raced with ideas that could reshape portfolios. There was a moment in her first year that still gleams in her memory. The firm's lead trader, Tom, stumbled through a hot tip on a volatile commodity and the room froze. Elena's pulse hammered. She'd spent nights modeling that exact scenario. When Tom paused, staring at the blinking screen, she cleared her throat, voice steady. "May I?" she asked. She stepped forward, fingertips grazing the lacquered conference table, and outlined her projections. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. Tom swallowed hard, but gestured. She continued mapping risk and reward with crisp precision. By the end, she'd steered the decision and clinched the first taste of triumph. Yet in the debrief, she downplayed her role. "I just built on Tom's idea," she told her mentor, wincing as she crafted the lie. Each victory thereafter came with its own shadow. When she finally led her own team, she discovered that praise for a man's leadership sounded like applause. Praise for a woman's leadership sounded like a warning. Rumors wound through the corridors. She was too driven, cold, difficult. Men's daring gambits were called bold. Hers were reckless. She watched peers erect invisible barricades. Late invitations to client dinners, averted eye contact in hallway passerbys. She learned quickly, push too hard, and the machinery of bias would grind you down. But Elena's drive was woven from threads spun long before her first bonus check. Her grandmother, a steelworker's daughter, had thrust her into a world of men hauling molten iron, insisting that women can shape steel too. Elena carried that legacy in her bones. When she encountered resistance, she folded it into her strategy. She trained herself to speak softly, but make every word land like a hammer blow. She mastered the art of the pause before she pressed her point. She let silence stretch, watched discomfort unfurl on others' faces. She weaponized courtesy. Yet the woman beside her desk, Eleanor, was more than a strategist. In mentoring meetings, she offered the young women on her team a lifeline, the courage to tap into their own subterranean currents of ambition. One day a junior associate, Mina, confessed her fear. "I don't want to be judged like you." Elena nodded, recalling her own martyrdom to humility. "Learn to own your voice," she replied. "Speak as if the world owes you nothing, because it does." She guided Mina through a presentation, teaching her how to anchor each slide in narrative that commanded attention. Watching Mina deliver with newfound authority was like seeing your own reflection across time. The turning point came 3 years ago when Elena faced the make-or-break merger of a lifetime. The boardroom table was a battleground strewn with documents and clipped pens. 2 white men opponents from a rival firm leaned forward, voices oily with skepticism. Elena could feel the weight of centuries pressing on her shoulders, the weight of every woman told to be quiet, every woman punished for her ambition. She inhaled again, then unleashed the product of months spent dissecting every variable. Her voice was gentle but relentless, each argument a scalpel that carved away objection until the room fell into a hush. When she finished, the rival CEO looked at her as if he'd glimpsed something alien. Then he nodded thinly. They won the merger. Analysts hailed the deal as the most strategic in a generation. Eleanor's name became a tagline in newsfeed's fearless female architect of megadeal. She accepted the accolades with grace, while every echo in her mind reminded her of the deals she'd relinquished under pressure, the time she'd whispered thank you when she wanted to roar, "I deserve this." She still carried the weight of self-silencing, the scars of hiding her ambition to make it palatable. After the merger, she walked the marble corridors alone, arriving at a glass-paneled board that framed the city skyline. She paused, pressed her palm to the cool surface, breathing in the moment. Here was the summit she'd chased since her first analyst days, the pinnacle of a mountain of silent sacrifices. Yet her gaze fell on the people in the lobby below, young women in pencil skirts and pressed shirts, eyes wide with promise and fear. She realized her ambition had become a torch, illuminating the path and warning of the pitfalls. "Women like you," she whispered to the reflection, staring back, "are reshaping the world." That phrase carried the weight of every sacrifice, every unspoken apology, every strategic silence. In that instant, Elena understood her ambition was never just hers. It belonged to the lineage of women who defied expectation, who let the ghost fires in their hearts blaze into daylight. It belonged to every woman who would follow, drawing strength from her resolve. As you step back from Elena's story, you feel the heat of that torch passing through you. You see your own reflection in her mirror, your own echo in her silence. The case study is more than a narrative. It's a blueprint of the emotional architecture that underpins dark female ambition. It shows you how you might harness your unspoken hunger, how you might stand in silent defiance before the world, and how when you finally speak, it will reverberate louder than any roar. Now that you've witnessed Elena's silent forges of ambition, it's time to unravel the forces that stoke that fire, the psychology, the biology, the social currents that converge to shape the dark ambition in women. You stand at the crossroads of science and spirit, peering into a labyrinth where shadows whisper truths. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and you sense that women's ambition emerges from the depths of an archetypal impulse to individuate, to break free from collective molds and claim personal sovereignty. In your own chest, you feel that same archetype thrumming the heroine who must descend into her own underworld, wrestle with dragons of self-doubt and social expectation, and surface transformed. This journey, Jung argued, is neither gentle nor linear. Each descent into shadow intensifies the light of consciousness above. When you bite back apologies and forge your path, you honor that heroine's call, drawing on centuries of suppressed power, finally given voice. Viktor Frankl, who found meaning amid the horrors of a concentration camp, taught that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. For you, the challenge is not merely external bias, but the inner narratives you've been fed. Stay small. Be grateful. Don't make waves. Those messages reverberate in your mind, tangled like barbed wire around your ambitions, and Frankl's logotherapy suggests that the will to meaning can untangle those wires. Every time you assert your vision, pitch an idea, negotiate your worth, mentor another woman, you reshape your meaning, map, carving out new neural pathways that reinforce your capacity to lead. In that sense, your ambition is an act of self-creation, a rebellion against imposed narratives. Nietzsche, whose shadowed insights you carry as your secret compass, proclaimed that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Your why glows like embers in the blackest night, the reason you rise before dawn to draft proposals, refine presentations, and steel yourself for meetings where your presence alone unsettles the room. Nietzsche warned of the last man of being content with mediocrity. You refuse that fate. In your veins pulses the will to power, not in the crude sense of domination, but the creative force to shape your world, to become an Uberfrau whose ambition compels reality to bend. Scientific research now confirms what intuition has long whispered. Neurobiological studies show that women's brains can exhibit amplified connectivity between hemispheres, fostering heightened empathy coupled with strategic foresight. You harness that duality. Emotional intelligence guides your reading of rooms and relationships, while analytical rigor fuels your planning. In boardrooms, your sensitivity to nonverbal cues becomes your secret advantage. You notice the hesitations, the micro-expressions that signal unspoken objections. Then you adjust your approach, leveraging that emotional data to craft arguments that resonate on both logical and visceral levels. Hormonal rhythms also play their part. Emerging studies reveal that fluctuations in estrogen and progesterone can heighten risk assessment and reward sensitivity at different cycle phases. You learn to align your most daring pitches with your peak zones of confidence and cognitive clarity. When you sense the gears of your biology clicking into overdrive, you schedule negotiations, knowing you're primed to seize opportunities. In quieter phases, you pivot to reflection and relationship building, collecting intelligence, nurturing alliances, and recalibrating your strategy. Yet the social scaffolding around you exerts its own gravitational pull. From childhood, you internalize narratives about appropriate ambition, stories of women who climbed only to be cast down, whose voices were edited out of history. Society's labyrinthine rules for women in power are like a shifting maze. Unveil too much confidence, and you're branded aggressive. Reveal too little, and you're dismissed. You learn the social dance of impression management, toning down authority with a laugh, cushioning strong assertions with qualifiers, letting others claim the visible podium while you pull the levers behind the scenes. These tactics form your psychological armor, but they also come at a cost. The constant calibration of self-expression can fracture your sense of authenticity. Cultural expectations add further complexity. In collectivist environments, ambition in women can be cast as selfish, a betrayal of communal harmony. In individualist cultures, that same drive is touted as empowerment, yet women still face a double bind. Be too ambitious, and you're castigated for stepping outside gender norms. Be too modest, and you're overlooked. You navigate this minefield by developing a meta-strategy. You present your success as a benefit to others, your team, your community, your family, thereby reframing your ambition as service rather than self-interest. In so doing, you diffuse criticism and reshape perceptions, proving that a woman's drive can uplift collective goals even as it elevates her own stature. Your internal world is the final frontier. Imposter syndrome creeps in like fog, whispering that you're an illusion soon to be discovered. That voice echoes societal disbelief in women's achievements, yet each time you confront it, when you journal your wins, when you reclaim credit in a meeting, when you mentor another woman, you chip away at that syndrome's power. You replace fear with facts, data-driven results, testimonials, and tangible outcomes. Over time, your internal narrative rewrites itself, transforming imposter syndrome from an uninvited roommate into a curious observer you politely ignore. You are thus an alchemist of self-transmuting cultural lead into golden leadership. The emotional intelligence that society once deemed a weakness becomes your leverage. The biological rhythms you once feared become your secret timing device. The paradoxes imposed by social norms become the very conditions that sharpen your instincts. In that crucible, dark female ambition emerges not as a flaw, but as a masterpiece, an intricate synthesis of mind, heart, and spirit. As you stand in this liminal space between theory and practice, you recognize that your ambition is rooted in forces both timeless and evolving. You are the culmination of archetypes, philosophies, science, and societal struggle. Your drive is neither unnatural nor aberrant. It is the most authentic expression of your becoming. And in that truth lies your greatest power, the power to redefine ambition itself, crafting a legacy that expands the horizon for every woman who dares to dream. You watch from the shadows as the world unfolds around you, and you begin to see the invisible fractures your ambition carves into reality. The first crack appears in boardrooms where women are overrepresented in middle management but vanish before the C-suite. Only 8% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. A statistic so static it feels like a monument carved in stone, until you realize it's a warning beacon of systemic resistance. That beacon flashes in every delayed promotion, every deferred opportunity, and every whispered apology you've forced yourself to utter. The cost isn't just personal. It ripples through teams, firms, and economies when half the population is barred from its full contribution. You sense the urgency as a quiet tremor beneath your feet in organizations where women's ambition is muted, employee engagement dips. Teams led by women often achieve 20% higher performance metrics, but when their leaders remain unseen, those gains vanish like mist. Morale sags. Companies lose out on innovation. You feel the weight of that loss in every unfiled patent application, every abandoned startup pitch, every research project that never crosses the finish line because its female founder couldn't secure funding. The toll on you is deeper still. Ambition channeled through the sieve of social expectation exacts a psychic tax. Burnout rates among ambitious women now exceed those of their male counterparts by 30%, driven by the relentless labor of code switching. You know that exhaustion, the late-night emails you send while your inner voice pleads for rest, the weekends you sacrifice to proof your worth, the hollow victories that taste of ash because you've erased pieces of yourself to be accepted. Your relationships bear the scars. Friends wonder why you're distant. Partners struggle with a spouse who's constantly calculating ROI on date nights. You're caught between two worlds, the one that applauds your rise in private and the one that demands your presence be smaller in public. Intimacy becomes negotiable. Vulnerability is a luxury you cannot afford. You learn to compartmentalize your life, but those walls aren't foolproof. Cracks appear in midnight, tears in forgotten anniversaries in the emptiness. After another. Congratulations email pings your phone. Even your health flags, warning signs, research links chronic stress to elevated cortisol levels, which in turn increase risks of hypertension and cardiac events. The silent ambition you carry is a conduit for relentless stress, a river that scours your shores until you face physical consequences that demand attention. You cannot outrun biology. Sleepless nights spent fine-tuning strategies will one day knock at your body's door. Beyond the personal, the social contract phrase. When women's drive is forced into shadows, collective progress stalls. Entire sectors suffer from groupthink, lacking the diverse perspectives only women's ambition can provide. In times of crisis, economic downturns, public health emergencies, the absence of women's leadership correlates with slower, less empathetic responses. Communities that exclude women from decision-making face higher inequality, lower social mobility, and a deficit in creative solutions when they need them most. Worst of all, you face the specter of legacy denied. You are the culmination of dreams and sacrifices, stretching back generations, yet the road ahead remains littered with obstacles. If you falter under the weight of unseen consequences, if you yield to burnout, erase your needs for acceptance or silence, your own advice, you risk giving future generations yet another blueprint of resignation. They will inherit a world where ambition in women is still an anomaly rather than the norm. But this is not a reckoning to paralyze you. It is a call to arms. The fractures you witness are precisely the fault lines where transformation begins. Every time you claim a seat, every time you speak without apology, you mend a crack. Every boundary you push expands the horizon not only for you, but for the countless women whose ambition still flickers unseen. When you recognize the stakes, the lost innovation, the personal sacrifices, the fraying social fabric, you feel the quiet urgency pulsing beneath your skin. It's a summons to lean into your drive, to give voice to that subterranean fire, and to refuse the illusion that ambition must come at the cost of your well-being or relationships. Your ambition is not the harbinger of collapse. It is the blueprint for rebuilding. In the cracked foundation of tradition, you find the mortar of purpose. In the fissures of bias, you plant the seeds of progress. And in every silent corner, where ambition once crouched, you ignite a new dawn and show the world that dark female ambition is not a threat, but the spark that lights humanity's future. Silence can be your strongest signal, a still pond that reflects what lies beneath and disturbs the surface with the subtlest stone. In that hush, you find the resonance of your own ambition pulsing like a heartbeat in an empty room. Learn to listen when your voice trembles before a meeting. Let the silence speak volumes, drawing attention, not away from you, but toward the power of your presence. You become the architect of silence, shaping its contours to build bridges rather than walls. First, cultivate purposeful pause in the workplace before you respond to a challenge. Breathe deeply, anchor your stance, and let your colleagues fill the quiet with their assumptions. Then shatter those assumptions with a single, unwavering statement of vision, as when you propose a bold new project and watch as your team aligns itself around your clarity. Second, employ empathetic echo in relationships. When a friend or partner voices doubt about your goals, mirror their concern with calm curiosity. Ask, what worries you most? And use that shared silence to build trust, bridging your ambitions with their fears, so that together you chart a course forward. Third practice, strategic storytelling in your broader network. In a professional event or women's circle, share a moment of vulnerability, perhaps the night you nearly surrendered to imposter syndrome, and then unveil how that low brought you to your greatest insight. The hush that follows will knit you to your audience, forging a bridge of shared humanity. Fourth, activate silent mentorship with emerging talent. Offer guidance through unspoken support. Circulate articles, set up introductions, and leave thoughtful comments on their work without fanfare, so your influence travels unseen, connecting points across the map of ambition. Fifth, embrace reflective withdrawal. In moments of overwhelm, step away from the roar of your obligations, retreat into solitude, just long enough to recalibrate your purpose, then return fortified with fresh perspective. Your silence becomes the suspension bridge that carries you over turbulent currents. In each of these actions, you transform silence from a barrier into a conduit. Every pause invites attention. Every unspoken question becomes an open door. Every moment of quiet turns into a pathway for women, yourself included, to cross toward empowerment. And as you master the art of turning silence into scaffolding for your ambition, you stand ready to step into the next chapter where your voice will rise in full resonance and your story will demand its place in the world. You've navigated moonlit halls of ambition, traced the silent contours of power, and felt the heat of Elena's torch passing through your veins. Now you stand at the summit of this journey, the wind carrying whispers of every woman who dared to dream beyond her prescribed horizon. The ultimate truth. Your ambition is not a curse to be concealed, but a pulse of life that awakens the world. It is the dark seed that, when nurtured, blooms into forests of innovation, compassion, and transformation. In that revelation, you shiver not from fear, but from awe at the limitless force you carry. Your drive reshapes destinies. Women who mentor women, who lead women, who build bridges of silence into bridges of understanding. Each ambition reclaimed from the shadows becomes a beacon for the next. As you reclaim your roar, you rewrite history's quiet chapters, ensuring that no woman's fire remains hidden in the dark. The final paradox, dissolved silence, is no longer your shield, but your canvas, where every unspoken thought lays the groundwork for a symphony of impact. This is your moment to step forward and own your narrative. Share your story of ambition in the comments, your triumphs, your fractures, your silent strategies. Let your experience illuminate pathways for other women yearning to claim their power. If you found resonance in this journey, subscribe to join a community where women's ambition is celebrated, not silenced. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a spark that could ignite your own dark drive. Share this video to spread the torchlight, guiding more women from the hush of doubt into the roar of purpose. Follow us on social media to continue the conversation, amplify each other's voices, and build bridges that span beyond these screens. Remember, your ambition is the map and the compass. It is the flame that men have feared and women have mastered. Let it blaze without apology. The world awaits the revolution you carry within.